What's up? My name's Royce, and welcome to my channel where I talk about all things film and tech related. And today I am so happy that I finally get to talk about Satechi's new Mac Mini M4 stand and hub, which I finally have in my hands. Now, I did a first impressions and video on the Satechi hub back in January when I saw it at their booth at CES, and it wasn't officially out yet, but now it is, and I immediately ordered it as soon as it became available on their site. So let's jump into it. Let's open up the package first. Obviously, you have the stand and hub, which is right there in the front. And it comes with some accessories to help install the NVMe SSD, which I'll be doing in this video. And that includes one mini Phillips head screwdriver, 2 screws, and 1 thermal pad. And what's nice, it comes with a QR code that if you scan it, it will lead you to a video that shows how to properly install the SSD. And here we have the hub. It's got a really nice aluminum design. Length and width are both 5 inches. Height is 0.81 inches, and it weighs about 6.8 ounces. So it's pretty light. Grab my Mac Mini over here. You just put it on like that. Now, it doesn't actually like latch on to the hub or anything, so that's just something to be aware of. Don't think it's like gonna like click or snap on. Like this thing can still slide off if you're holding it at an angle, but it does fit in there quite nicely. It's obvious, but just note that with the stand and hub plus the Mac Mini M4, you're adding a little extra height to your setup. So wherever you plan to put this thing, just make sure you still have that nice height clearance. And if we look in the back, we have that notorious cutout to help reach the power button. So no more tilting it on its side. I know it's not a big deal, but this will just make that a little bit easier. And on the bottom, we have the actual USB-C plug that will plug into the back of the M4. And also, open this up. This is where we will install our NVMe SSD. And what's nice is this supports 2230, 4260, and 80 sized SSDs. And I know I say Mac Mini M4, but this goes for both the Mac Mini M4 and M4 Pro. This stand will work with both. They also note that SSDs equipped with heat sinks and double-sided drives are incompatible with this enclosure, so that's something to keep in mind. On the front of the hub, we have an SD card reader, which is SD 4.0. This will give you 312 megabytes a second of transfer speeds. The rest are 3 USB-A ports. The first 2 are USB 3.2 Gen 2, which will give you the 10 gigabit speeds or that 1200 megabytes a second transfer speeds. And with the last one being USB 2.0. But they have them all marked, so you don't have to guess which one is which. And also just to note, the NVMe SSD will also max out at 10 gigabits a second. So this hub really isn't intended to be one of those that gives you those super fast next-gen transfer speeds. So before I attach my Mac Mini M4, let's install the SSD. First, I will install the thermal pad by peeling off the back plastic, and then align it with the screw holes. And once I have that there, I will peel the top plastic part off. And I'm installing my Samsung 990 EVO Plus. It's 4 terabytes. So slide that in at a 30-degree angle, and I'll push it down, and then I'll lock it in with the provided screw. And going back real quick, with my SSD being 4 terabytes, that is the maximum capacity that this hub will support. Close it up. And that's it. And then I'll remove the USB-C plug from the bottom, put my Mac Mini on top, and then plug it into the back. Now, one of the things that could be considered a con with this hub is it's clearly not a Thunderbolt hub, and you're taking up one of your Thunderbolt ports, leaving you with 2. Also, another thing with the design, they have included vents on the bottom, and even the way that the Mac Mini sits kind of like in this indented area, they say that that helps encourage airflow. Let's plug it in and see how it actually performs. Now my Mac Mini is powered on, it's connected to the hub. Now let's just double check a couple things, make sure everything is working as promised. So first off here, if we go to system information and we scroll down to USB, we can check here that the Mac Mini stand and hub is being read. It's being read as a 3.1 device. Now I know it might be confusing if we look up here and see USB 3.1. That's just how Macs choose to label these devices, even though the USB standard has been changed over to USB 3.2. Macs, for whatever reason, still keep the old USB 3.1 labeling. But the speeds and everything should be the same, and we can check that if we open up Blackmagic's Disk Speed Test app. And I have this pointed to my NVMe SSD, so I'm going to hit start. And we see those speeds there. I was about to say, oh, okay, no, it dropped. I was going to say, I've never actually gotten over the 1,000 megabytes of read or write speeds. So the fact that it kind of shot up for a second to 1300, I was like, oh, okay, it's teasing me now. Stop teasing me. But yeah, it stops at about almost, oh, so close. It's important to highlight this hub is not meant to compete with the newer Thunderbolt 4 hubs or even the Thunderbolt 5 hubs that are starting to come out with. This is specifically for people who they do need some speed, but they don't need the fastest speed, right? They need to be able to expand their storage in a more convenient way. This provides that with the NVMe SSD enclosure at the bottom of the hub, and also people who need access to those legacy USB-A ports. But on top of that, it also provides an SD card reader, which the Mac Mini M4 doesn't have. Now, if you're wondering if the speeds that you're going to get from the SSD within the Mac Mini M4 hub is fast enough for you, you can actually check here, and this is why I love Blackmagic's Disk Speed Test app so much. Under here, will it work? You can actually see the speeds that are approved by this test. So if you're someone working with video footage, you can see and check off here. If you're working with Blackmagic RAW with these speeds, you're actually good all the way up to 12K 60. Now, if you're working with ProRes, it gets a little iffy around 8K, although 12K 24 they say is fine, 12K 60 is a no-go. Anything H.265, you're good to go. So this still is a viable option to edit your footage and work off of within that SSD enclosure, and you don't have to worry about having external SSD hanging off the side or anything like that. This is also really great if you bought the M4 base model or the M4 Pro base model. You have this kind of like nice clean solution to provide an external SSD option for storage instead of paying Apple all that money to upgrade or paying more for an SSD or SSD enclosure that still has to hang off to the side. It just keeps your setup nice, simple, and clean. Now, when it comes to the Wi-Fi issues with the previous Satechi hubs, I personally do not have experience with that, but I have been told that's been a problem, and to see if that issue has carried on into this stand-in hub for the M4. And from the various tests that I have done testing my internet speeds, I have 1 gigabit speeds through AT&T, and I've done this test with the Mac Mini on the hub, off the hub, during the day, during the night, just different variables. And I can't really give a cold hard answer just because the speed tests varied way too much just in and of themselves. There were times where the speeds were the same whether the Mac Mini was on the hub or not. There were some times where the speeds were even faster with it off the hub. There were some times where it was slower off the hub. The one thing that was consistent though was my overall Wi-Fi signal. I did not drop bars whether the Mac Mini was on the hub or off the hub. What I can say is a Satechi rep that I spoke with during CES back in January said that they have worked to get rid of that issue. And because I can't say one way or the other, I have to take their word for it here. But this was just my experience. Check out other videos, see what other people are saying, and then make your decision based off of that. Another thing that people point out are the 3 USB-A ports and how that can be considered a con, because why include those legacy ports instead of including more USB-C ports, or at least include one Thunderbolt port to replace the one that you're taking up in the back of your Mac Mini. Let's take the USB 2.0 port for a second. Why would you really need that in 2025? Well, for example, there's a lot of different peripherals and things like that you can plug in. For example, I have this Asus USB controller that will help me connect to my controller without having to use Bluetooth, that I now can plug in without having to use an adapter, which I've had to use up until this point, which, you know, is fine, but the less adapters you can use, typically the better. So now I can just plug that in to the USB 2.0 port. And that's used in a lot of similar cases too. If you have a mouse, you do the same thing, or for your keyboard. So based off of a lot of comments I got from my first impressions video on the Satechi hub, there's still a lot of people who need those ports and utilize them. And I think that's the market that Satechi is really aiming for with this. Clearly they are capable of making Thunderbolt hubs because they have Thunderbolt hubs. They have a Thunderbolt 4 hub that you can buy right now. But if you take a look at that hub, it's more expensive, a lot bigger, and requires external power. So is Satechi's Mac Mini M4 stand-in hub worth purchasing? I know it's cliche, but it really comes down to your personal needs, your workflow. If you're somebody who needs those faster speeds, then it makes more sense to look at a Thunderbolt hub, but know that that's going to be more expensive. This stand right here is $99. Thunderbolt hubs can usually get up to $200, $300. So even if $100 seems like a lot, if you want those faster speeds, you're going to be paying more than that. So overall, I'm really happy with Satechi's stand-in hub for the Mac Mini M4. I think what it's actually designed for, it does really well. If you want the expanded storage with the SSD enclosure at the bottom, you can still do content creation. You can edit 4K clips even up to 6K. As you saw with those speed tests, depending on what your codec is, you still can push this and get a lot out of it. Or just take the content creation aside, you just have another way to store those larger files that you have, and you can store up to 4 terabytes with that external SSD. If you have peripherals that still use USB-A, you no longer need to worry about adapters or whatever. You could just plug those straight in. And you still have access to the 2 Thunderbolt ports on the back and the 2 USB-C ports on the front, even though the front ports are slower and they have the 10 gigabit speed similar to the hub. And again, the design is just really nice. It keeps the look really clean on your desk. And as far as the Wi-Fi, the overall signal and strength, didn't see any drop bars. That seemed to stay strong. But if you are interested in getting Satechi's Mac Mini M4 stand-in hub, I'll leave a link in my description. And that's it for this video. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. If you have any other questions on Satechi's hub, please leave it in the comments and I'll try and answer as many as I can. And yeah, until next time, I'll catch y'all later.